Coming up on this Tuesday edition of Newsline at noon, 10 people are dead and 2 seriously injured after the roof of a building where university freshmen gathered for an orientation event collapses in Korea's southeastern city of Gyeongju. Egyptian authorities believe a suicide bomber carried out Sunday's bus bombing in the country's northeast that left 3 Koreans dead. Some of the survivors are expected to return to Korea later in the week. Plus, North Korea strongly rejects and denies the UN panel's report, which accuses Pyongyang of crimes against humanity and says leader Kim Jong-un must face justice for abusing the rights of his people. These stories and more on Newsline at noon.
Thanks for joining us. You're watching Newsline at noon. I'm Choi Yusan in Seoul.
Very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broom. Now we start with the horrifying building collapse in Korea's southeastern city of Gyeongju that has claimed so many young lives. 10 people have been confirmed dead and more than 100 have been injured too seriously.
And for more on the current situation, we're going to connect live to our Shin Se-min, who's on the phone at our news center. Se-min, what's the latest information we're getting?
Hi, Yusan and Mark. The events of the last night's tragic accident are finally taking shape this Tuesday lunchtime, and this is what we know now. More than 500 freshman students from Busan University of Foreign Studies were having their orientation in an auditorium at a Mauna Ocean Resort in Gyeongju when it collapsed at around 9 p.m. Monday night Korea time. And as of now, 10 people have been confirmed dead and over 100 have minor injuries, while 2 are in critical condition. Hundreds of fire and police officials remain at the scenes, but fortunately, people who have been reported missing in the hours after the accident have since been accounted for. The resort's location, high up a mountain, made it much more difficult for emergency services to get to, and the recent heavy snow and the ice made things even worse, with witnesses saying that it took nearly half an hour for emergency services to arrive. And so far, several people are receiving medical treatment at hospitals in the nearby city of Busan.
Se-min, the students that managed to escape say there was an indication the building was under strain in the moments before it collapsed. What are we hearing about that?
That's right. Of the some 500 students and organizers that were in and around the auditorium, scores managed to rush to the exit as a loud cracking sound was heard around 10 seconds before the roof caved in. And most of the injured and those killed were the ones unable to evacuate the building before everything came tumbling down. An eyewitness says the ceiling came down at the front, forcing students to rush towards the back exit.
The ceiling came down at the front near the stage, so I ran out. Within 10 seconds, the ceiling fell right on top of us, hitting me on the head.
So it must have been absolutely terrifying for those involved, and I'm sure those that managed to get out are still pretty much in a state of shock right now. And it seems the most likely explanation for the collapse appears to be the heavy snow that has fallen in the area over the last few days.
Yes, there is a growing speculation that heavy snow on the roof could have caused a collapse following the recent massive snowfalls across that part of Korea, but officials say they're still trying to figure out what exactly caused the roof to suddenly fall in on itself. Also, it has been said that the structure of the auditorium was frail as it was a temporary building. Local police say they'll launch a full investigation once rescue efforts have finished. And Prime Minister Chung Oh-won has launched an official inquiry into the accident, while the Ministry of Security and Public Administration is due to submit a report to Parliament regarding the matter. And sending her condolences to the victim's family, President Park Geun-hye says the case should be thoroughly investigated. Guys?
Thank you, Se-min. Do keep us updated throughout the day.
Yeah, that was our Shin Se-min with the latest on the building collapse in Gyeongju, southeastern Korea, where 10 people, mostly university students, were so tragically killed last night. Now, in the rest of the day's news, police in Egypt say they believe a suicide bomber carried out Sunday's bus bombing that killed 4 people, including 3 Koreans.
And this comes as an al-Qaeda-affiliated terrorist group in Egypt has claimed responsibility for the attack. And Hwang Sung-hee has the details.
Egyptian security forces say a suicide bomber was probably behind Sunday's deadly bus bombing in Sinai that killed 4 people, including 3 Koreans. After reviewing CCTV footage of the attack, police concluded a suicide bomber had boarded the tourist bus and detonated his explosives near the door. A spokesman from Egypt's Interior Ministry said Monday that the preliminary investigation shows some tourists disembarked to get their bags when a man walked onto the bus and an explosion followed when he reached the 3rd step. The bus, carrying mostly Korean tourists, was waiting to cross into Israel at the border when the blast took place. An al-Qaeda-linked Islamist group, Ansar Bayt al-Maqdis, has claimed responsibility for the bombing, saying it had previously warned it was planning an attack. In an online statement Monday, the group promised to continue to target the state's leaders and economy by hitting tourism and exploding the natural gas pipelines, threatening additional attacks in the next few days. Sunday's bombing was the first targeting tourists since the overthrow of President Mohamed Morsi last July, sparking fears Islamic militants are turning to attack Egypt's tourism industry, which is a pillar of the country's economy. Meanwhile, 15 survivors, who are expected to return to Korea on Tuesday, are still in Israel as they are struggling to find a flight home. An official at the Korean embassy said the group is planning to board a flight from Istanbul and added they will arrive in Korea on Wednesday afternoon at the earliest. 11 of the 13 injured Koreans have undergone surgery to remove fragments and debris from their bodies. 2 more will stay in Israel a little longer as they need to have further operations. The bodies of the 3 dead Koreans have also been transferred to Tel Aviv and are undergoing return procedures. 황성희, Arirang News.
The sheer horror of life in North Korea has been laid out for all to see in a new UN human rights report in which the international body accuses the reclusive regime of crimes against humanity. Our Jin-ju has the details.
After a year-long investigation, the United Nations has concluded that there have been systematic, widespread, and grave violations of human rights in North Korea. In a detailed report released Monday, the UN Commission of Inquiry on Human Rights in North Korea defined the abuses as, quote, crimes against humanity, which means that most of them were based on policies and decisions made by the North Korean regime in an effort to maintain a grip on power. The report said the international community has the responsibility to protect North Koreans by applying the so-called responsibility to protect status to the communist state and urged the UN Security Council to refer the North Korean regime to the International Criminal Court in The Hague. The crimes in the North are spread over 9 areas. Violations of freedom of expression, ideology, and religion, discrimination based on origin, violations of the right to movement, violations of the right to food, which then leads to issues regarding the right to life, arbitrary detention, torture, and violations associated to prison camps and abductions of foreigners. The chairman of the UN inquiry, Michael Kirby, in a personal letter written to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un last month, has warned that the Commission will recommend the UN to refer the situation in the North to the ICC to, quote, render accountable all those, including possibly Kim, who may be responsible for the crimes against humanity. The report also called for stronger and continued UN efforts to enhance the human rights situation in the North, such as setting up an organization that could be in charge of follow-up measures to the investigation. Jin-ju, Arirang News.
The UN report is being seen by many as a wake-up call to the world to take action against the human rights abuses being committed in North Korea. The North's ally, China, however, may put the brakes on international efforts to tackle the issue. Our Kim Ji-yeon reports.
Although the atrocities laid out in the UN report on the human rights abuses in North Korea have been in the public domain for years, the report is being seen as a renewed call to action. The chairman of the UN inquiry, Michael Kirby, said the report calls for attention from the international community, highlighting the deep regret that was felt after the atrocities of the Second World War came to light.
If only we had known that. Well, now the international community does know. The international community will know. There will be no excusing a failure of action because we didn't know. We do know.
The inquiry conducted by the panel of experts of the UN's Human Rights Council is regarded as the highest profile attempt by the international community to investigate the abuses in the reclusive state, and the evidence gathered here could lay a foundation for future claims in the International Criminal Court. The UN Human Rights Council is expected to adopt a resolution on the issue when the panel formally presents its findings next month. Yet it remains unclear what actions will follow. China, North Korea's longtime ally, will likely block attempts to refer the North to the ICC, using its power as a permanent member of the UN Security Council. As expected, the report has raised questions about its possible impact on relations between North and South Korea. Seoul has welcomed the UN's findings and vowed to cooperate with the international community to improve the human rights situation in the North. North Korea, on the other hand, has flatly rejected the report, saying it will deal strongly with any outside attempts to topple the North Korean regime. The two Koreas made a breakthrough during high-level talks held last week to revive reunions for families separated by the Korean War. The first round of the reunions is scheduled to take place this week. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Former NBA star Dennis Rodman will be investigated over his recent visit to North Korea by the United Nations. A source at the UN told Seoul-based Yonhap news agency Monday that the international body will investigate whether Rodman, during his visit to North Korea in January, violated UN resolutions against Pyongyang. Specifically, the UN Security Council's North Korea Sanctions Committee will look into whether the presents Rodman gave North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is in violation of UN sanctions on the North. Last month, the US Treasury Department also started looking into whether the former basketball star violated US sanctions banning the import of luxury goods into North Korea. Rodman's controversial visit to the North attracted greater attention when he gave Kim and his wife presents such as a fur coat, a handbag and premium alcoholic spirits. Back here in South Korea, and a lawmaker, Lee Seok-gi of the left-wing Unified Progressive Party, has been sentenced to 12 years behind bars for a rebellion plot in support of North Korea. It's the first time a sitting member of parliament has been convicted of such a charge. Kwon So-ah has the details.
The verdict is in. Leftist lawmaker Lee Seok-gi of the Unified Progressive Party has been sentenced to 12 years in prison and will be stripped of holding public office for 10 years after his release from prison. The ruling handed down by the Suwon District Court said Lee violated the national security law and is guilty of leading a clandestine pro-North Korea group called the Revolutionary Organization, or RO, which was planning to blow up key infrastructure in South Korea in the event of an inter-Korean war. The lawmaker was also found guilty of plotting to overthrow the government. The court said it found pro-North Korea documents in Lee's possession and that he had previously sung North Korean military songs, both of which are prohibited under the South's national security law. Other members of the UPP who were on trial on similar charges were sentenced to 4 to 7 years in jail. Monday's decision follows an intensive investigation that included statements made by a whistleblower from the Revolutionary Organization. The court said the RO had been planning a rebellion since March and that it included an armed revolt in the capital Seoul. Both the ruling Saenuri Party and the main opposition Democratic Party said they supported the verdict, while the UPP has criticized it, saying the judiciary gave in to pressure from the government. Lee is likely to appeal the case, and he continues to deny all the accusations against him. Speculation now surrounds how Monday's verdict might affect another decision currently pending at the Constitutional Court, that being the question of whether the Unified Progressive Party should be dissolved. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
For your fill of Korean and international news, join Chae Yu-sun and Mark Broom every weekday at lunchtime. NEWSLINE at noon.
Plenary session this Wednesday and vote on the government restructuring bills.
The National Assembly has been holding a hearing on last month's massive data breach that affected millions of people here in Korea. Among government officials reporting to lawmakers on this Tuesday are Finance Minister Hyun Ho-seok, Financial Services Commission Chairman Shin Se-min, and Financial Supervisory Service Governor Choi Soo-hyun. All three said the nation's regulatory bodies have strengthened monitoring of staff at financial firms and established new regulations to better control sharing of customer information between affiliates. Firms will also be dealt much heftier punishments if they are subject to future data breaches. The personal data of up to 20 million Koreans were leaked last month from three leading credit card firms, KB Kookmin Card, Lotte Card, and NH Nongyap Card. Producer prices here in Korea fell for the 16th straight month in January as prices of raw materials, including oil, fell. The Bank of Korea says that the producer price index fell by 0.3% last month from a year earlier. Producer prices have fallen every month since October of 2012, marking the longest decline Korea has seen. The sinking producer price index, which is a barometer of future consumer inflation, indicates inflation may continue to be low for a while. Korea has been monitoring the deflation rate as consumer prices ran below the central bank's inflation target band for the 20th straight month in January.
The 39-year-old mayor of Florence is on his way to becoming Italy's youngest ever prime minister. Matteo Renzi received a mandate from Italian President Giorgio Napolitano on Monday to form a new government after Enrico Letta stepped down as prime minister last Friday. Letta was ousted by his own Democratic Party, which called on Renzi to fill the post. Renzi, a highly popular figure within the party, has laid out an ambitious plan to revitalize the Italian economy. Renzi was never elected as a member of parliament and will now have to have his nomination confirmed by the president before he is sworn in as prime minister, which could happen as early as Thursday. The United States is accusing the Syrian government of purposely paralyzing peace talks on ending the three-year-long conflict. A second round of talks in Geneva broke down last Saturday with little progress other than an agreement to meet again for a third round later. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry says Syria, Russia and other allies of Damascus are working in unison to stonewall the talks. Responding to Kerry's comments, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov accused Washington of trying to bring a military conclusion to the conflict by backing members of the opposition that have already left the negotiation process. Activists estimate more than 140,000 people have been killed in fighting in Syria since the unrest broke out in March 2011. Now, on a much happier subject, we are now well into the second week of the 2014 Sochi Winter Olympics, and you might think the Olympic fever is only being felt inside the arenas there, but you'd be wrong because the party spirit is in full swing pretty much all over the stunning resort city.
Right, and why don't we now connect to our sports reporter Song Ji-san, who is currently in Sochi. Hello there, Ji-san.
Hello guys, I'm reporting Sochi Media Center at downtown Sochi, where you can also watch ongoing games as you can see behind me on the screen. And the fans can also enjoy the games as they can watch ongoing games anywhere across the city in Sochi and Adler. Take a look at how the fans can enjoy the games even after leaving the Olympic Park. Practically everyone walking around Sochi is decked out in Olympics merchandise or their team uniform. And those who aren't are lined up at shops.
I waited to buy some clothes during 15 minutes. It's cool, I think.
And even if you weren't lucky enough to get a ticket to the games, you can still be part of the Olympic excitement. Here at downtown Sochi, the Olympic vibe is alive both among domestic and foreign fans who have gathered here for the Olympics. You can buy souvenirs, watch ongoing games, and cheer for your favorite athletes here at one of the live sites across the city. With tickets harder to get each day, the sites have become a place for all to join. Despite early reports that Sochi wasn't fully prepared for the games, fans are enjoying every moment, and avid Olympic fans who have been following the Winter Olympics even before the Sochi Games are already looking ahead to 2018 when the gold event will be held in Pyeongchang.
So far, everything has been fantastic. The volunteers have been really helpful whenever we're getting lost, and yeah, everything's been really well organized. And
so we went to Vancouver in 2010. We've been here, and now 2018 we're planning to go to see the next set of games.
To these fans, the only pity is that the Olympics last for just a little over 2 weeks, and another wait of 4 years is right around the corner, just as it is for the athletes.
Well, that's all for me from now, and I'll be back with another story within the Olympic Park tomorrow. Hope you guys enjoy Olympics wherever you are. Back to you.
Thank you to Ji-sun there, and I hope she enjoys the Olympics as well. And that was our Song Ji-sun reporting from Sochi, which is the bustling host of the 2014 Winter Olympics.
And let's get a check now on the latest sporting action at the Games with our trusty sportscaster, SJ.
Now, we've just completed day 10 of the Sochi Winter Games, and we're counting the days until we can see Kim Yeon-ah defend her title in the women's figure skating event. And while she spent most of her time with her rehearsal, the drawings were out for the short program. Well, the 17-year-old Koreans were drawn early with Park So-yeon going second in Group 1 and Kim Hae-jin going fifth in Group 2. The figure queen Kim Yeon-ah was drawn in the middle as she's set to go fifth in Group 3. Now, this puts pressure on her rivals Yulia Nipnishkaya and Mao Asada, who's set to go first in Group 5 and very last, respectively. Meanwhile, Kim Yeon-ah's short program is scheduled to take place on Wednesday, 9:24 p.m. Sochi time, or Thursday, 2:24 a.m. Seoul time. While the nation had high expectations for the South Korean bobsleigh team, they fell short in the two-man bobsleigh event. With South Korea's Won Yun-jong and Seo Young-woo's combined time after 4 races at 3 minutes 49.27 seconds, check that, it was good for 18th overall as Russia claims the gold medal in the event as Alexei Voivoda and Alexander Zubkov finished with a combined time of 3 minutes 45.39 seconds. Meanwhile, Switzerland and the U.S. finished second and third, respectively. And moving on, after finding out they were mathematically eliminated from the Olympics, the South Korean women's curling team went on to face Canada and lost 9-4. But for them, the future still looks bright. Despite it being their first ever Olympics, the South Korean women's curling team did manage to beat Japan, Russia, and the United States. And while they won't be advancing to the semifinals, the popularity of the sport here in the nation is as high as ever, as many believe that they'll come back 4 years later with a much better result in Pyeongchang. Now, things didn't turn out the way many expected for Team Korea during the Sochi Winter Games, but they still have a chance at adding a few more medals. And speaking of which, a couple of chances on day 11 of the Sochi Winter Games. Now, first off, while Lee Sang-hwa lived up to her expectation and claimed the 500-meter women's speed skating gold, things didn't turn out the way everyone expected for the men's side, as Mo Tae-bum and Lee Seung-hoon failed to win any medals. But Lee Seung-hoon has a shot at a medal during the men's 10,000-meter event on Tuesday. Meanwhile, the South Korean women's short track team will look to add a gold medal as they're the favorites going into the 3,000-meter relay final set to take place later on the day as well. And now finishing things off, let's take a look at the current medal count after 10 days of competition in Sochi. Of course, taking a look here, we see that Germany is still on top with 8 gold medals this time, but other nations are catching up, including Russia, who jumped up to second with 5 gold medals, with the Netherlands in third and the United States moving up to fourth. Korea still looking to add more medals as they sit in 17th place with 1 gold, 1 silver, and 1 bronze. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
OK, let's get a quick check now on the weather with our weathercaster Ji Yeon, who's standing by the weather centre. Hello there, Ji-yeon.
Good afternoon, guys. Well, today will be slightly cooler than yesterday, with highs above 5 degrees Celsius in most regions, and we do expect mostly to partly cloudy skies and a slight breeze. And snow has continued to fall in Gangwon-do, but it will taper off slowly as the day goes on. And there's no snow in the forecast for tomorrow, but it will return on Thursday. And Sochi, which is hosting Winter Olympics, will have a mostly cloudy day with isolated showers and a high of 11 degrees Celsius. With that, here are the readings for Korea. The afternoon high in the capital, Daegu and Busan, will be at 6 degrees Celsius, while Gwangju will see a high of 8 this afternoon. Now, for other regions, it looks like Jeju will climb up to 9 and Daejeon will rise to 8, while the top temperature on Mount Kumgang will be at -9. Now, that's all for me today, and back to Mark and Yusan in the studio.
Thank you very much, Ji-yeon, for the weather, and those are the stories we're following at this hour.
Join us again tomorrow at the same time for Newsline at Noon.